All right, everyone, this is Tim. This is New York Giants Straight Talk. You know what? Sometimes we talk about topics here that we have a lot of fun with. Sometimes we pick on some players. You know, it's all in jest and it's all in fun. But sometimes a topic comes up that you want to discuss, and it goes beyond the barriers of sports and race and football. And it's a subject that I never shy away from, because it's something I think that if we had more open conversations about race in this country, and we didn't argue as much, and maybe we listened to each other, we would be in a much better place. And the topic of conversation I was thinking about is the fact that, what if Daniel Jones was a black quarterback? What if Daniel Jones was an African-American quarterback? And we're going to have a special guest on today. His name is James Williams. Of course, James is a subscriber. He did a video, and he posted it on YouTube, and I watched it, and it kind of struck a nerve with me, some of the things that he said. And he's going to be on the mic for the final 10 minutes of the show. But I know that some fans of the NFL and some fans just in general will point out the fact that the Giants were the last team. The Giants are one of the most storied franchises, one of the franchises that's been the longest in the league. They were the last team to start an African-American quarterback. They have never drafted one. And of course, that was in Geno Smith replacing Eli Manning. And I kind of look back at the lineage of going back to staying in the modern era with the Giants, and their opportunities to find a quarterback, and not just a quarterback, not a black quarterback, a Chinese quarterback, a Hawaiian quarterback, or whoever, just get a quarterback in general. And if you take a look going back to 79, you had Phil Simms drafted in the first round by the Giants in 79 and basically played till 93. So, and of course, you had Jeff Hostetler in between there. You had a couple games with Jeff Rutledge. So, at that point in time, you were never really looking for a quarterback, and it didn't matter the color of the quarterback's skin. But I think about this also. If you go back even to that point of the 70s, there were not many African-American quarterbacks taken in the first round. Doug Williams, of course, was taken in the first round in 78. And then the next quarterback taken in the first round, African-American quarterback, was Steve McNair back in 1995. So there was a long gap between the league. And I think there was there racism in the league? Of course, there's racism anywhere. Was there a misconception about African-American quarterbacks? I think 100%. I always think back to Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward, while some people felt he was a product of the system at Florida State and the offense that they ran, they didn't really think about what his intangibles were. And the fact that he was, they were determined that he would not go in the first round. That's what caused him to go and play and get drafted in the NBA. I think of Tommy Frazier. Tommy Frazier, Nebraska quarterback, great quarterback. He had the leg injury, so he had the arterial injury on his leg, so he really never got the opportunity to play. But he was another guy that wasn't going to go drafted, because they didn't. The powers that be at the NFL never really thought about, how to use him in the league. So do I think there was, systematic racism between there 79 and going back to 95? Maybe. You don't know. You can't say what's in people's minds. But I also think sometimes there was a fear of the unknown at that point in time. And that's definitely not an excuse, not for any team or not for the Giants. But like I said, if you take a look at the Giants' career from 79 to 94, you had a quarterback. You had your quarterback in camp. Now, of course, the Giants went through the doldrums, after Phil Simms, but they weren't in a position to take McNair in 95. So, and also they had already drafted Dave Brown, the supplemental draft, a couple years prior. So they tried to ride the Dave Brown train. They then tried to ride the Danny Cannell and Ken Graham train, and then they hit again on Eli Manning in 2004. And Eli Manning, of course, had an extremely long career. Now, everyone always points out the Patrick Mahomes draft. The Giants should have drafted Patrick Mahomes. The Giants didn't do this because they didn't want a black quarterback. That's why they didn't draft Patrick Mahomes. No, people seem to forget the Giants had just come off an 11-5 season. Eli Manning had already thrown for over 4,000 yards and 30-plus touchdowns that year. We did not think that. We knew the cliff was coming for Eli Manning, but you did not think that the cliff was going to come as quickly for Eli Manning and the Giants after that season. And well, we all know what happened. We did fall off the cliff. We did topple down. Eli's play dropped exponentially. The Giants had a losing season. Geno Smith became the first African-American to start for the Giants in that game against the Raiders. He got himself fired from doing it. And he kind of went, and I don't think he got himself fired because Geno Smith was black. I think it was the way he handled the entire situation with Eli Manning, and John Mara was looking for a scapegoat. And then after the Eli Manning years, we went right into Daniel Jones. We weren't getting Kyler Murray in that same draft because of the fact that, of course, he went #1 overall. We took Daniel Jones 6th. And we've been kind of riding the Daniel Jones train for a while. Now, we go back a couple of years. 2 years ago, I said, and I did a video, if Parsons wasn't available, I would take Justin Fields. And it wasn't because Justin Fields was a black quarterback. I thought he had more of a skill set and more of an intangible skill set, which is lending itself more to the NFL now than it did previously. And I thought he was going to be a better quarterback, and only time will tell, than Daniel Jones. But I always go back to Kyler Murray. And I find it interesting. Kyler Murray got paid. Kyler Murray got his money. Kyler Murray has more passing yards, more rushing touchdowns, more passing touchdowns than Daniel Jones does. And they both made a playoff, but of course Daniel Jones won a playoff game. And Kyler Murray got his money. But I find it weird and interesting that Kyler Murray they were trying to put clauses in his contracts in reference to him being lazy, reference to him not being a film guy, not studying. He would have to have a certain amount of hours in the field, in the locker room studying. And I don't think they would I don't really think you would do that with a white quarterback. I'm being honest. Because I think there's still, in some regards, in some organizations, that conceptions that there's a gap in intelligence between the two races in reference to quarterbacks. And I'm not saying that's prevalent through the league, but I just can't see that happening with someone like Daniel Jones. Now, Kyler Murray got paid, but Kyler Murray got paid off his stats. He did have a down year this year, but he's getting paid off of what he's done on the field. And Daniel Jones, to me, is getting paid off of what he could potentially do. He had an average season. And again, I don't think this is racially motivated by the Maras or the Giants. I think that the Giants and Mara, they sometimes stay too long at the party. Now, if you want to go back to Wellington and George Young knew when to get rid of players. Sometimes he got rid of players that were, just on the cusp of going downhill. Maybe they had another year or two left, like Mark Bavaro, or they're coming off a great season like Phil Simms did when he had the torn labia, and then he had labrum. He had the torn labrum. I don't know what I'm talking about today. It's been a long day. But he had that injury, and they waived him. Same thing with Harry Carson and George Martin. They knew when to get rid of players. They did not hold on to them as long as possible or too long. They moved forward and they moved on. I think the issue with John Mara is, and I don't see any racial bias about it, is the fact that sometimes he stays too committed to his guy. He stays too committed to the guys that are surrounding him and surrounding the Giants. Now, I do think that the start of Geno Smith was a huge mistake for the Giants. And like I said, I don't think that the dude who got himself fired, did I call him Bob McAdoo? I always call him Bob. I don't know why. But I don't think he got the doo-doo fired because he was black. I think he got the doo-doo fired the way the situation was handled in reference to the Giants. Now, some people will also point out, well, if you go back into the history, especially in the NFC East, you had teams that have started, multiple black quarterbacks. Hell, I mean, you go back to 86, Reggie Collier was the first African-American quarterback to start for the Dallas Cowboys. And they had Dak Prescott. They had I can't remember the other guy that they had that was on drugs. They even started Rodney Peete at one point in time. You had the Eagles, of course, with Randall Cunningham and Rodney Peete as well. And of course, Donovan McNabb. And you had Washington with Jason Campbell and Doug Williams. So you have had guys that have started. And of course, the Giants have only started one player. But I also think it's because of the fact that the Giants, like I said, the Giants had the ability to have long-term solutions at quarterback. And I think that does not give them a pass for not following in the footsteps of all these other teams. But I think it gives a little bit more notion to why they have not drafted a black quarterback or have not had one start more than one game. Because like I said, if you go back into the lineage of Giant quarterback history, you've had some guys that have played a long term, and you have guys that have played for an extended period of time. And it kind of goes back to my thought processes. If Daniel Jones was a black quarterback, would he still be starting for the Giants? You have to go back to Arizona again. They drafted Josh Rosen. They figured out within a year Josh Rosen wasn't the guy, and they drafted Kyler Murray. I kind of think the same way. I think the Giants are reluctant to give up on players, not because their race, but because of the fact that is just the Giant way. We don't give up on guys. We don't move forward and we don't sally forward and all of a sudden just change directions. And I think sometimes this has been to the detriment of the team. Would it have been nice to have picked up Lamar Jackson with the 32nd pick, of course, as he went to Baltimore, and have him? Sure, it would have been great. I think he would have been a fantastic fit for the Giants. But again, it was not the Giant way. And I think if you sit there and you look at this from an outside perspective and you look at a sports perspective, especially hopefully in 2023, I would hope a team would take a player from Pluto because he thought they could win them some games. He could win games, or he would be a good player. That might be a little naive on my part, but like I said, as a Giant fan since '76, I've seen this team. I've seen the direction of the league. Yes, I do think in the 70s, 80s, and even into the late 90s, there was a misconception about the African-American quarterback in reference to their intelligence, in reference to what they can do on the field, and how you had to change the system for them. You know, how they didn't do well on the Wonderlic test. How, you know, if you go back to Cordell Stewart with the slash days, you know, it was his versatility, which was his downfall. You know, even back in 2003, Donovan McNabb was on Rush Limbaugh and claimed that there was a media bias in favor of him, you know, because he was a black quarterback. And Limbaugh stated that the media has been very, you know, disingenuous to black quarterbacks, you know, and you got to give a lot of credit for his performance. And, you know, team would, I mean, in other words, what he was basically saying was that there was a bias towards them, and they did not receive the preferential treatment the media did in reference to the black quarterback. And so this is even going back into 2003. I mean, Tyrod Taylor, which is interesting, mentioned in an interview in 2007 with the Buffalo News, and he always said he always knew he would be more criticized than his white counterparts. And these are same sentiments that was echoed by Michael Vick and Cam Newton. You know, and even if you go again into Lamar Jackson had a great career at Louisville, but there was all these things that they wanted to change his positions because he was too fast. He had too much talent at other positions that he would not make himself a quality quarterback. So at the end of the day, I think the league's mindset has shifted, and I think that if you take a look at what has happened just recently as well. You know, drafted in the first round, you have Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, Trey Lance, Justin Fields. These are guys that have been taken in the first round just recently. So I think in some regards, the league has shifted. I don't think they're making a conscious effort in reference to drafting a black quarterback. I think they're making a conscious effort to drafting the best quarterback that could help them win. But like I said, we would be naive if we did not think that there was some form of racism or some form of inequality going back from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and even the early 2000s. But I hope, like I said, hopefully we're making that change. We're making that turn. And like I said, my thought process is, even if Daniel Jones was a black quarterback and he was a Giant, I think John Mara would hold on to him to dear life until he is finally has to make the assessment that he made a mistake with the quarterback and then move on. And like I said, for Mara, I don't think it's a black-white thing. I don't think it's a Chinese thing. I don't think it's a Neptunian thing. I don't think it's a Martian. I think it's just the fact that he just believes in Giant pride. Once a Giant, always a Giant, and he doesn't want to give up on guys that are a good kid, or in their minds a good kid, even though their play on the level of the field may not dictate the level of talent beyond an average quarterback. We're going to go on the mic right now with James Williams. Like I said, we had some audio issues with James, so hopefully you can hear exactly what he has to say. And again, here we go on the mic. All right, everyone, this is Tim. This is On the Mic with New York Giants Straight Talk. In regards to our video today, we had another video which was created by a subscriber and a friend, and it kind of falls into place what our video was about today. And that video, of course, you can find it on YouTube, is Are We Chasing Martin's Dream, or Are We Just Chasing the Bag? And that creator, of course, is the venerable James Williams. And James, I want to welcome you coming on today. How are we?
What's up, brother? What's up, brother? Thank
Well,
you for having me.
Well, we're doing good, and the reason I wanted to come and have you on, for those that do not know it, go find James Williams. We have the link down below. We have the link in the comments. Again, the video is called "Are We Chasing Martin's Dream, or Are We Just Chasing the Bag?" And it's a good video. It's a great video actually, and I think it has a lot of honesty in it. And it has a lot of honesty in it about a few different things about the NFL and race and quarterbacks and and just life in general. And I kind of wanted you to maybe just summarize the video a little bit. What made you want to make the video, and what do you think, or what do you hope will making this video achieve?
Well, thank you, brother, again for having me on and giving me this minute to speak. Um, I'm just a person that, much like I'm sure a lot of people are, that you get tired sometimes sitting back and just watching, seeing and hearing what's going on. Again, we are still in February, Black History Month. And again, my video, I point out, shout out Hispanic Heritage Month, Asian Heritage Month. I forgot to shout out my Italians and my Irish, so excuse me, my Native Americans. It's hard to cover everybody. But my purpose in making the video is just to bring attention to certain things that unfortunately kind of get swept under the rug. We all love sports. I love the Giants. I love the Giants. Those are my two favorite teams since I was able to watch sports and listen to it. They will always continue to be my team, but there are certain things that needed to be highlighted that I felt were not getting that they deserve, basically. And instead of just jumping in somebody's comment or being a troll, whatever they say, I wanted to actually take action and do something, and hopefully people will watch that, see my sincerity. And again, I didn't anybody out. I didn't bring anybody down. It's just bringing the things that sometimes swept under the rug.
And the video itself, like I said, you touch on a lot of points. You touch on the fact that how the first African American to play for the Giants, number is not even retired. I actually didn't. I actually knew that, but it was interesting because I didn't really think about it until I watched the video, and I'm like, oh my god, you're right. He's a Hall of Famer. He's the first African American to play for the Giants, and his number is not hanging in the rafters with Lawrence Taylor and Phil Simms and Harry Carson. Well, not Harry Carson yet, but the Giant greats. Mm-hmm. And my question is, I mean, why do you think in 2023 the Giants have not acknowledged or gone out and retired the number? I believe the number is 45. Last 45 I can remember is Leon Bright. But why do you think they haven't I know the Giants aren't huge on retiring numbers. They're not like the Yankees who retire a number every other week. They're pretty soon going to have to start using the letters of the alphabet, the Yankees. But why do you think they haven't gone down that route?
Honestly, brother, I don't have a real answer or an edge. I'll say I don't even have a way to get. I pointed it out. I find it weird that he elected into the Hall of Fame, but we didn't hire his number. Same thing I could say for Marlon Briscoe, Denver, number 15, first Black quarterback to actually start in the modern era. That sounds like something that should be honored. And his numbers in Denver, Marlon Briscoe as well, but it's not. Because Tim Tebow wore that magical run he had a few years back. I honestly don't know, brother. The purpose of my video, it's not to call out any organization, any YouTube, anybody. It's not to call racist, prejudiced, but we do have to pay attention to what's going on right in front of us. Mr. Tunnell, first black player on the Giants, was a great player. And the last 45, I can't remember, I think it was Henry Inoski or something. I liked him, but I just really weird we didn't honor him and by his number. I don't have, but I wanted to highlight the fact that him, Marlon Briscoe, others who have broken barriers, and let's just be honest, history did not have that. He was retired. I don't have an answer. I don't. So I wish I did.
Well, the video that's the kind of started this thing that I've done. I mentioned that while the Giants were the last franchise and one of the most storied in one of the franchises that's in the league the longest, was the last one to start an African American quarterback, start a black quarterback over Eli Manning in that Raiders game, which of course that would be Geno Smith. And I know you haven't seen the video, but I kind of touched to the fact that in regards to you're looking at a small number of African American quarterbacks that were taken in the first round. If you look at the Giants' history, there really hasn't been an opportunity at times to draft that quintessential black quarterback, because you had Phil Simms from 79 to 93, and you had a mixture of quarterbacks in between there. Then you had a little bit of doldrums, and you landed on Kerry Collins, and you had 16 years of Eli Manning. And everyone talks about Patrick Mahomes, drafting Patrick Mahomes. Everyone seems to forget the season prior or before the Patrick Mahomes was drafted, the Giants went 11-5 and made the playoffs. Eli Manning threw for over 4,000 yards, 30-plus touchdowns. And I find it interesting that everyone was like, well, they should have had the foresight in drafting Mahomes. Well, your quarterback just came off what could arguably be a Pro Bowl season, making the playoffs. I don't think the Giants thought that that Eli was going to fall off the cliff like he did that next season. And that was kind of the beginning of the end of Eli Manning. But he, like I said, he did have a quintessential Pro Bowl season before then. So I can't fault the Giants for doing, not having the opportunity. But when you look at the fact that the Eagles have had multiple African-American starting quarterbacks, from Rodney Peete to McPherson to Randall Cunningham, to Donovan McNabb, the Eagles, with going back to Jason Campbell and Doug Williams, and I know I'm probably missing other people. And then you even have going back, to Dallas, currently with Dak Prescott, and they actually started Rodney Peete at one point in time, and they also started the I can't remember the other kid that flamed out with the drugs. So they
started Carter.
Yes. So I mean, it is interesting, but do you think that it just came down to the fact that the Giants just didn't have, I would say, the opportunity, because of the fact that at times they have had the quintessential quarterback for sometimes 13, 14, 15 years out of 10, a run that long of a period of time?
Oh, of course. Two things are, one, to your point, which is truth. Again, facts over. The Giants are an organization that tries to be stable, keep stability. They want to have a quarterback there for long term. We've been blessed to have a few quarterback, Phil, Eli Manning, even Kerry Collins for a few years, where we were not in the situation or position to draft a black quarterback many times. So there were black quarterbacks that came out, a la the Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, like you said, but we were not in a position to realistically think about that. However, I will bring up one other situation, and you tell me. The Cardinals drafted Josh Rosen, had him for a year. After that 1 year, drafted Kyle, because they were, but also their quarterback was not up to their standard. When Justin Fields came out just a couple of years ago, we were in a draft him where we did not have to move up, We did not have to get draft picks or trades, and our quarterback at that time had not proven it. Justin Fields was a better prospect coming out of college. So why do the Giants think about drafting? I don't have an answer for that. We should have at least thought about it.
We should have thought about it. We did the draft stream, and I mentioned that if Parsons wasn't available, I would have taken Justin Fields because I thought he was a better quarterback, a better prospect than what we had at number 8. Number 8 being the quarterback. But I do think again it lends to the point of the Giants' stability and not wanting to get rid of someone just after 3 years, because that's not the Giant way. You know, sometimes the Giants ride or die with players until they literally die and the wheels fall off the bus. It's not like, and that's recently. Back in the old days, I mean, they unceremoniously dumped Phil Simms. Same thing with technically Harry Carson. Same thing with Lawrence Taylor. A lot of times when it was, Mark Bavaro, when George Young knew when a player was time to move on, they would move on, even if they thought he might have another year or so left. They would move on. I don't think John Mara does that. And I personally don't think there's any racial motivation behind that. I just think it's his into his fault. I think it's his inability to look at the talent that he has and say, well, he's a good kid, and then not move on from that player because he's a good guy. He's a Giant. And I think that's kind of what stuck the franchise since after 2011. My question is, and this is the video. This is the video, and this is my question. You might want to hold your microphone a little bit when you talk, because I'm getting a little feedback here.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. The video is entitled "What if Daniel Jones was a black quarterback?" So the question is from me to you. If you look at Kyler Murray came in the league same amount of times. He has more wins. He has more passing yards. He has more touchdowns. He has more rushing yards. But right now he got the big contract, but he's being labeled at time as not intelligent enough because of the fact that he has to go more into the game room. He's not studying. He's not this. He's not that. But Daniel Jones, who arguably has had a worse career and has not shown the potential, for some reason, people are talking 40 million, 45 million, even 35 million. I mean, do you think that if Daniel Jones was an African-American quarterback, that he would still be on the Giants?
Man, I want to honestly, I don't. Number one, if we erase his name, his color, and where he came from, meaning Daniel Jones, and you just looked at his play and looked at his numbers, why would you keep that? Why would you turn around and keep saying he was a good person does not mean you're a quarterback. You could be the best person in the world. It does not mean you can lead a team of men. It does not mean you can drop a clutch 30-yard dime pass in the fourth quarter in the last 2 minutes. And I'll ask you, how many times in 4 years have we seen him do that? Everybody says Jones is a leader. Why? Tell me one situation where he rallied the troops or he showed his leadership. I can't think of them. And the one thing I will say that is definitely racially motivated is, especially in the Giants community, we tear apart, not you and me, not both of us, but a select few. We tear apart Lamar Jackson. He can't throw. He's not a real passing quarterback. He misses games. All of those things can be said about Daniel Jones. His legs, meaning Daniel Jones, are his best friend. He is not that great a thrower a la Patrick, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. And he's missed almost the same amount of games as Lamar Jackson. But Lamar Jackson played a whole season more
2.
because the Ravens picked up his 50 option. So you're telling me both of you guys have missed 10 more games, yet all I hear is Jackson, he's not dependable. He misses games. But he wins 5 times as our guy. 45 and 16 as a starter. Again, facts. I'm not here to explore or say that Giants are prejudiced or any fan is prejudiced. But if you keep spewing the same rhetoric and it's just not factual, then I ask, what is your agenda? What are you pushing? Because Lamar Jackson and Daniel Jones have missed games. They're both runners. They're both athletic. But Lamar Jackson, period. And that can't, even though it is.
And you know what, James? I think we're going to leave it at that. And for those that don't know, this is James Williams. He just came out with a video called Are We Chasing Martin's Dream, or Are We Just Chasing the Bag? It's on YouTube. You can find it on the links below. I appreciate, James, you coming in for the last 10 minutes on the mic. I think this was a good segment. I think this was a needed segment. And like I said, I appreciate everything you do, and even just supporting the channel. And I think it's a topic of conversation that should be had, should not be steered away from. And I think we should, as a society, we might be a better place if we end up talking about things instead of just arguing all the time.
True. I 100%. And thank you to you and everybody. Shout out to everybody who watched the video, left comments. I'll respond. And again, I'm Tim. This YouTube stuff, so excuse me. But thank you for your support, listeners. Thank you to all my brothers out there who supported the video. Again, we're all human, and we all have blue blood. That's a fact.
That is a fact. And you know what? This is Tim, and for James on the mic, thank you guys, and we're out of here. All right, that was a great on the mic segment with James. I appreciate him coming on and talking about this. And like I said in closing here from Tim at New York Giants Straight Talk, if we talked more about race, if we talked more to each other instead of spending time shouting at each other, I think we would understand that everyone has a common ground, no matter what your race, nationality, whatever. I think everyone would find that we're all the same. And I think people should just be treated that way, not only in sports, but in life. And again, this is Tim. This is New York Giants Straight Talk, and I'm out of here.